you get the first take at the next question. Do you believe in small government? And if so, what services would you cut from Cotati's current offerings?
I believe that we need a government that will actually support what's here. And that, I believe, would be small. I think that every department within the city is important. I think planning is very important. I think it's important to know where you want to put things. I think it's important to have a plan of how you're going to develop. If you didn't have a planning department, you wouldn't be able to go into the future and say, this is what needs to happen. We need to have a blueprint of what's going to happen. I think every department is important, but I think you need to make it as efficient as you can. And so I would like to see a more efficient government. And, you know, small is fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey.
Well, this is something that we have never seen in most of our lifetimes. So this is new to everyone. Every family is struggling with less. So we, as a government, are also going to have to see what we can do with less. I am not for cutting any services. I think that we need those services, that we are not going to stay in this situation, so we need to protect those services. So we may need to make them smaller. We may need to look at volunteer opportunities. We may need to cut pay, but we need these services. As was stated, it's important to have the planning department. People come in and they're changing their houses, they're changing water heaters, all kinds of things. We cannot eliminate that. We need the public safety because we want our neighborhoods to be safe. So right now, we have the services we need. We just need to figure out how to make them more efficient.
Thank you. Mr. Barich.
We surely can't outsource the planning department. Other cities have done this successfully, Petaluma for one. There's nothing wrong with city planners going out and starting up an office on their own and providing the same level of services they're doing here in-house at considerably cost savings to the city. But the idea of small government is a relative term. It just depends on how you're using the term and in what context. Everybody wants small, efficient government to work well. Then there's this idea that somehow it just kind of gets out of hand in time. We had a recreation department here in this town, a wonderful recreation department. We lost it and we did not have to lose the recreation department. Had the city taken the necessary steps to bargain an across-the-board salary and benefit reduction, our recreation department would still be in place. And having City Hall closed on Fridays now is not the answer to our city's financial woes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kirchmann.
Excuse me, yet again, we have to, in essence, find best practices. We don't live on an island here. We live in a county and we live in a state that is being faced with tremendous hardship right now. But we need to look at best practices. Can other cities operate with less and with more efficiency? Can they maximize what resources they have? And it's not a matter of just saying, oh, these people do it, so let's try it. But we can see what other people are doing and determine, can we do that here? We've been, if you will, a bit fat for a while. Our salaries are more than competitive for our size. We need to look at other cities our own size, not only in the county but outside, and see what do they do and what works best, and can we utilize that here.
Thank you, Mr. Kirchmann. And you get to respond first to the next question, which is, if the city had an unbalanced budget, how would you vote and why?
They've had an unbalanced budget for the past 5 years. They've been working at a deficit of $250,000+ a year. So after 4 years, you're $1 million in the hole. This year, unprecedented, they're looking at about $1.3 million, give or take. There are going to be more shortfalls coming from expectations. People assume that they're going to have a certain amount when they budget. They assume it's going to be fluid and continue. With the close of businesses such as Redwood Reliance, that's a great deal less funding than was expected. Cost of living continues to go up, cost of revenue and resources are going down. So it's an impossibility to continue to spend and stay fluid. We have to reduce costs any way possible at this point to stay solvent.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
Could you please repeat?
Certainly. If the
So what was there is no longer there, and you can't really make a balanced budget if you don't know how much is coming in. So I would really want to look at why it isn't balancing before I decided how I would vote on that budget.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey?
Our economy all across the nation is crippled. We're crippled. We have an imbalanced budget. We need to look at what is causing those unbalances and look to see what it is that we can do to fix those. As stated, I would want to look at each of the line items and understand them and understand why it's unbalanced. We need to work towards balancing it, but the fact is the state's taking our money and so is the federal government, and it makes it hard to have a budget if you don't know what the check is that's coming in. So as others have said, I agree, we need to keep an eye on the budget, and we just need to continue to make adjustments and do the best that we can. And I would vote based upon why we are in the situation we are and work towards making it better.
Thank you. Mr. Barich?
Well, I'll answer the question. Your question was, how would I vote? And I would vote no. And I did vote no, because it takes courage to vote no on an unbalanced budget so that this community has faith in what this city council is doing with our money. An unbalanced budget is a travesty. We had $2.5 million in reserves 3 or 4 years ago. I came to every one of those budget meetings this afternoon in this room with a couple citizens, and we watched our reserves get plundered down to nothing in 4 years. And we objected, and we saw the warning signs, and we explained to the council to be cautious with the people's money, and it's gone. It's not acceptable. And as far as the state taking money from the cities, yes, indeed that happens, but the cities have been taking money from the state in forms of grants and other handouts for years. So this copacetic relationship between the state and the cities has brought us to where we are today.
Thank you. And Mr. Barich, you get to respond first to the next question, which is, do you believe that it is appropriate for a council member to lobby for or against federal stimulus funds for Cotati? Why or why not?
Absolutely, it's appropriate. Back in January of this year, the city of Cotati, through the mayor, signed on to a letter to President Obama that was authored by Supervisor Mike Kearns, asking for stimulus money, and spelled out a long laundry list of why it was important to receive these stimulus funds and what would happen to our community if we didn't. When I read that letter, I brought that to the attention of the council, that I wanted to weigh in on that letter, but that letter was already sent out. So I informed the council that I'd also like to weigh in on this issue, and that I'd be writing a letter on my own. And the council did not object one word. So I wrote my own letter, and I asked the president to look at stimulating the economy in a different way than what he had planned. And absolutely, it is every elected official's responsibility in this country to weigh in on the federal debt and how it's going to affect our local communities.
Thank you. Mr. Kirchmann?